This video is going to introduce the topic of consumer surplus. And consumer surplus basically is the added benefit to consumers. So I'll just go ahead and write this. It's the benefit to consumers of having a market. And so we're going to see in just a second how that is calculated, but first we're just going to go ahead and put up the same old supply and demand diagram that we've been working with for a long time now. So let's just say that the demand equation is that price is equal to 100 minus x. So well, actually, you know what, rather than x, let's just do q, because we have q on the x-axis. And then the supply equation is represented by price is equal to 0.25 times quantity. So to graph this, we're going to go ahead and I'll do the demand in green, I guess, and then I'll change colors for the supply. So when quantity is 0, demand is, or price is 100, and then it just goes down by 1 every single time. So I've gone ahead and made these every single space $5 or 5 units of quantity. So this is up 20, which is 100. So then if I can draw a straight line, we're going to, and I cannot draw a straight line, but you're getting the picture, that is our demand line. So if the price were $0, people would want 100 of whatever good we're talking about. And let's talk about, I don't know, let's talk about apples. No, that doesn't make sense that an apple would be $100. Let's talk about iPods. Alright, so then I'll do supply in red. So it's 0.25 times q, so we'll start at 0 and we'll go right 1, 2, 3, 4 and up 1, right 1, 2, 3, 4 and up 1, 1, 2, 3, 4 up 1, 1, 2, 3, 4 and up 1. And here is almost, alright, so there's our supply line. And I purposely chose these two because they intersect at a really nice spot. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to calculate where they intersect. So let's call this point A, and we're going to find out what point A is. So A is where demand is equal to supply. So I'm just going to set these two things equal. This and this are going to be equal. So 100 minus Q is equal to 0.25 Q. Add q to both sides, we get 100 is equal to 1.25 q, which another way of writing 1.25 q is 5/4 q. So 100 multiplied by 4 is 400 is equal to 5q, and then divided by 5, so q is equal to 80. And then to find what price is, we just plug that back in for Q here. So P is equal to 100 minus 80, which is equal to 20. And you can plug that into either equation to get your answer. So we now know, and that's something that you're going to need to be able to do whenever you get supply and demand equations, is you're going to need to actually be able to go ahead and calculate quantities and prices. So we have a quantity of, oh, excuse me, it's not a quantity of $80. I don't know what I was thinking. It's a quantity of 80 units. So this is 80. And then our price is $20. So that's $20. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to get down to what consumer surplus actually is. So I said that it's the benefit to consumers of having a market, but how do we measure that? And it turns out that the way that we measure that is it is the area, so I will go ahead and I'll write this right here. It's the area below demand and above, I'm just going to write over P right there, and above price. And here's the logic. So because of this demand line, we know that there is, when quantity is equal to 1, right here, we know that there is one person that is willing to pay $99. So there is one person that's willing to pay $99, but he only has to pay $20 for his iPod. So he would have paid $99, but he only has to pay $20. So he gets, excuse my math, he gets $79 of surplus, of additional savings. Then the next guy would be willing to pay $98, but he only has to pay, so I'll change colors for this to keep it a little bit more clear. So the next guy right here on the demand line would be willing to pay $78, but he only has to pay $20 also. So he gets a surplus of $78. Then the next guy would be willing to pay $97, or sorry, $97, excuse me, and he only has to pay $20. So he gets a surplus of $77. And if you keep on doing this all the way down to the very, very last consumer that is willing to pay exactly the market price, to the very last consumer that will pay exactly $20 and gets no additional surplus, you see that consumer surplus, the added benefit to consumers of having a market, is this triangle right here. So if we put points on it to name it like we do in geometry, if this is point A, I'll make this point B, and then I'll make this point C. The consumer surplus, which is often abbreviated CS, is equal to the triangle A, B, C. So now we can go ahead and calculate the area of that triangle. And I'm going to go ahead and just write on the graph to do this because I'm running out of room. So we can find the area of it just like we would find the area of any other triangle. We do 1/2 base times height. So we take 1/2 times the base here is 80 because we already figured out what quantity was. So we already know that from here, from the origin over to point A on the x-axis is 80 units. So that's our base. And then our height is 100 minus 20. So 1/2 of 80 times 80. Well, 80 times 80 is 3,600. If my math is, no, my math is mistaken. It is, that would be 80 times 40. So 80 times 80 is, we have 1/2 times 6,400. And then half of 6,400 is 3,200. And that is measured in dollars. So consumers save $3,200 than if they would have to go bid individually with the maker of an iPod one by one and bid their reservation price, which their reservation price is the absolute amount that they would be willing to pay, the absolute maximum. So I hope that that makes sense, and the big takeaway from this video is that consumer surplus in any market is the area above equilibrium price and below demand. So with that, we'll get on to the next video.